Okay, and this is our fourth session. Rabbeim Ramchal is going to keep pushing this idea of the tzorach, the necessity, the absolute need to involve ourselves deeply with the study of Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, etc. Let's see. Im lo nistakalnu, if we don't look and we don't delve into the staklos, lo yanu, and we're not ma'ayin, again, delving in with our heads, like Ian learning b'kiyas. What is true Yirat Shemayim, and what are its branches? How will we acquire it? And how will we keep ourselves far away? Limalet means like miklat, limalet. How will we get away from hevel olami? The vanity and the falsity of the world, right? The world comes and says to us, Yiras Shamayim, that's not so important. Money, that's important. Prestige, oh, that's important, right? And of course, it has its from versions, vanity, making everybody think that I'm chashuv or etc. That's also hevel olami. Oh, make sure that my kids have only the nicest clothes, only for kavod yom tov, of course, right? That's hevel olami. Make sure we only eat in the best restaurants. That's hevel olami. Because the real Yiras Shamayim is far away. It will be forgotten and go away from us, reach further and further away from us. Even though we know a chova, that's the cry, that's the tragedy, that's the mistake. We realize this is important, but it becomes forgotten for us. If we don't try hard to be conveyed into our hearts, with the power of everything we can bring to this, right? What do we bring? The full power of the American force to this, the full nature. How will find this? Where will we get dvekas, cleaving to Hashem, v'slatus, and excitement, if we don't spend time thinking about His godless and His romus, I want to focus on this line for a second to show again what I believe a very important switch, and this one has developed over years, and the way I answer this question and deal with this question today is very different than the way I would have 10 years ago. So allow me to share. Rabbeinu here says something that we find in other Mechabrim, which is this: how will we get to Dveikus and Ava if we don't do this, i.e. this thing we have to do? Nish'ef, we don't turn to. Nish'ef means if we don't turn to His greatness and His romamus. Asher yoli b'leibenu havad hadveikus, which will be molding us hadveikus hazeh. So says Rabbeinu, how do we get to Dveikus? How do we get to the desire to cleave to Hashem? Well, if you think about Hashem, if you think about His romus, if you think about His godless, you'll get there. Now, this is something that we find in the Rambam and in Tanya. The Rambam famously says, and it's well known, that the Rambam famously says that when a person sees the Bria, he's immediately desires to be close to Hashem. They created such an amazing Bria. And the Tanya speaks about the idea that a person thinks about how the Rebbeinu Shalom is gadol kol amos. He's so beyond all the worlds. You think about 15 billion light years. Think about what a light year is. It's just an incredible amount. The distance is mind-boggling. Now imagine 10 light years, 15 light years, 100 light years, 1,000 light years, 1,000,000 light years, 1,000,000,000 light years, 15 billion, 16 billion light years. Kadosh Baruch Hu is so much greater than all that, so much bigger than all that, so much beyond all that. Anything we can imagine, that's godless Hashem, Romas Hashem, etc. And I think the Tanya is the sefer which most goes into this from the Svarim I know. The few Svarim I know, the Imamish goes into this point and really speaks about it. And that's really the whole Chabad system, Chachma Bina Das. That's the Chachma which gets the Bina, gets the Das, etc., and gets into the Midas, etc. Amazing. That's our way. So for a while I'd been thinking that so many of us don't connect to that. So many of us, I'll say it like this, we're just like not philosophical enough. That's real thinking, and that's real attachment. And it could be we're not philosophical enough. It could be, as I heard one of the Rabbeim of our generation, Rabbi Yosef Elephant, said, we're drowning in sushi. It could be we're mushballs. You say whichever you want to say it, and again, I speak to my understanding of the many people, and there are always exceptions, and there are always individuals, and if you're an individual who get moved, and if you can focus well enough on those things, and they move you, and you see that. So stop listening. Amazing, but so many don't. So what does it? So this I saw in Tzimar Zilberg, and I just want to give a short akdama. Those who I'm close with, like someone I often quote. One of the true tzaddikim of our generation is someone named Tzimar Zilberg. You can see from his writings. I've read hundreds of pages of his. He was a person who's dripping with Avos Hashem, with Yiras Hashem, with Avos Yisrael, with Kedusha, with Tara, and he has hundreds of thousands of followers around the world. He's really a self-made Hasidic Rebbe. Doesn't call himself that. There's no official Hasidus. There's no Chutzer. There's none of that stuff. You don't see him that much in the papers. But people who know. Someone I've heard finishes Shas 4 times a year. Someone I heard that the great Mashgiach last generation, Dov Yafa, said he's the gift to our generation. So he's someone that I've adopted as, and I have a personal relationship with him. But someone that I perceive as someone who is a tzaddik nizgav, and also has a pulse on the generation. He understands the needs of the generation in a very great way. He has certain extreme opinions about different things, like many tzaddikim do. That's not a critique on him. He's I would say, bigger than our world, in my humble opinion. And it's good to be davik to tzaddikim, and I try to be kind to be davik to tzaddikim by being davik to him and his writings, which I read very, very often when I can. He has pamphlets which come out mostly in soft cover. I hardly ever read him in hardcover, but I have read him in hardcover. And he like I talk about, people have called me the Nechona. It seems to me he's really been someone who's been mashlim his midas in a very, very strong way, and is looking for shleimus. And he can talk with the same passion about Ben Chavero. They'll talk about Ben Makom, the same passion. They'll talk about Kedusha, they'll talk about Torah, as they'll talk about Yom Tov, as they'll talk about Parshas Bereshis, And many people bigger than me have recognized him as being a huge person. The reason I said that is because I want to give some weight to what I'm about to say. So I saw Ritzi Meyer once in a footnote made Baruch this point, and he said that today the way we're going to encourage our ha'ava is by thinking how much Hashem loves us. When you when a person realizes how much someone loves them, the natural for a healthy person is you feel love back. And that's why, by the way, that produce love in others. If you really love others, they'll love you back. If you really are angry with others, they'll feel that back to you also. And there are psukim which get across this point. Many psukim, now is not the place for the proofs to this idea. Anybody who wants, you can ask me separately, and I'm happy to share more. But when we'll feel Hashem's love for us, when we'll think about how good our lives are, then we'll feel obviously that's good. That's why, besides all the other benefits of gratitude, and there are mental benefits to gratitude, there are physical benefits to gratitude. A person full of gratitude lives a longer life. You're happier, etc. But right, if you see, I like to say, you can see the cup is half full. No. You should see the cup is 99% full. For those listening and not seeing, I just wiggled my fingers and I showed my eyes. I smell. How much is smell worth? How much is taste worth? How much is an arm worth? How much is a child worth? How much is a wife worth? How much is a husband worth? How much is a grandchild worth? How much is it worth to experience Shabbos, to daven, to learn, to have friends, right? How much would you give up? Someone say $5 million, but you can't have any friends. You can have your immediate family, just no friends. Would you take $5 million? Most people wouldn't. That means your friends are worth $5 million to you. And you have things which are worth billions of dollars to you. You sight in one eye, $10 million. We wouldn't do it. We're billionaires. But we don't focus on that. We focus always, that's one of the challenges of life, is what's lacking. This is lacking my child, this is lacking me, and this is lacking my relationship, and this isn't the way it wants to be. And there's so many things. I read a phenomenal line in Shalom Bayis one time. And I think this is for sure true for men, and I imagine true for women also. If you focus on the good things of your wife, you'll have Olam Haba. If you focus on the bad things, you'll have Gehenna. It's in your hands, right? There are objectively, terrible women, they're objectively, malachim, etc. But most of us are in the middle somewhere with good things and negative things. And you focus on the negative things, you're gonna have Gehenna. You focus on the good things, you'll see it's Be'emes Olam Haba. What a person, what a woman, what a man, what a husband. He provides for me. He goes to work every day. How many women don't give their husbands enough of cars to tow? Okay, So the point is, though, back to Hashem, if we start from a point that really we have nothing coming to us in our world, you're all listening. Everybody here, if you're with me, you have ears, right? And we have so much pens, running ink, bathrooms, water coming out of the walls. Remember, it wasn't always like that. But we're just used to it, so now we don't appreciate it anymore. I'm saying things everybody knows, and I'm of course talking to myself. But if we would take it in, how much joy can you have from a pen? From food, the food we have, the abundance, the quality, the types, incredible. The music, you can be a poor person and listen. You have greater music than a king. A king would have to have. A king couldn't, unless he had, 2 or 3. I don't know what. Maybe the most wealthy person, but I had a proof one time. Achashverosh was cold. It says Esther was with him when he was cold. Achashverosh was cold. Achashverosh ruled over the whole world. His Malach Mekipa, the whole world. And he was cold. We're not cold. We have air conditioning. We don't appreciate it. We just if we would live in that, whoa, amazing. How much is Hashem giving for us? And then we realize that the Borei Olam is behind all that. We feel love to him. And that's the way for us to have Ava. And the Rav Meyer says, he can bring down, that's what we see in davening. We have the tzivui, we have the command of Haftas Hashem Elokecha v'chol lov v'chol nafshecha. But before that, we have the paragraph of Ava Solam and Ava Rabbah, right? Ava Rabbah Ftano, Kadosh Baruch Hu. So it's bedafka like that, specifically like that. When we think Ava Solam, Ava Rabbah, Kadosh Baruch Hu, you love us so much, then V'hafta. Now we're ready for the tzivui of V'hafta. That you can remember this Torah twice a day. So again, for the philosophical amongst us, for the great-minded amongst us, for the clear-minded, for the focused amongst us, who can engender your feelings through, great. But if it's just because you read Tanya and you're Tanya Yomi, and it's just because you're a Rambam person or you're a Tanya person, you're a Chabadnik or you're a Chabadnik to both, right? But you're a real Rambam person, you're a real Tanya person, and you tell me that, well, the Rambam doesn't say it like that. I turn to you and I say, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? If you're feeling Avos Hashem through that, great. If it's just a technical thing the Rambam said, you don't get credit for that. It's Limud Torah. For Limud Torah, you get. I would also learn. I learn Rambam. I learn Tanya when I have a chance. Learn both Kavaldi. But me, I don't think that's going to turn me on. And I think these things can't affect me more. So that's why it's important. And again, there's another example why it's so important to learn the Svarim and to explain the Svarim, but to be around correct applications and knowing where we're like a little different then, and putting it into perspective. And again, this is Mesilas Yesharim explained. It's not Schoonmaker explained. But I feel obliged where I have something which is well founded, right? Not just to share the alternate path to the Mesilas Yesharim, the Kovod Rosh, obviously, and only when I feel really sure about it, based on things I've heard from Rabbeim or things that I think are extremely obvious. Just need that thing, Otherwise, the person says, well, this line isn't for me. 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 So why do we learn these forms? We learn these forms as there are basis. There are Tzom Barzil. There are goals. There are aspirations, as much as we can. But together with that, our job is always to understand where can we be shaykh, where can't we be shaykh, where will it take a lot for us to be shaykh, where are there other drachim which work a little bit better for us. Okay, and I think this is very much what I was makabel from Rav Leichter in general. And others, and this specific one, if I remember correctly, I thought this a long time, and then I remember I saw Rav Meyer said it. I was very, very happy to see the support from someone as big as him, who I consider he would be a great living example. He's a living Mesilas Yesharim. So for living Mesilas Yesharim, he didn't say this on the Mesilas Yesharim per se, but he did make this comment specifically about getting Tavas Hashem. Okay, so let's continue though. I'm going to read that line again now. How can we cleanse our thinking if we don't cleanse it from the mumim, from the blemishes? Right? How can we cleanse our thinking? How we can cleanse our minds? How can we matar our minds if we don't try hard to cleanse it from our natural blemishes in our thinking, right? I have a good idea. How about listening to lots of silly people who aren't really experts talking about news all day? That might do the job, right? How about watching lots of silly entertainment? How about lots of TikTok? No, it's not going to work. Right? It's not going to help. Right? It's going to make it worse. So, so as we're talking about how can we cleanse our thinking, right, from what is naturally part of us, it's obvious that we have to make sure to try to avoid as possible the things which make us think more and more silly. And besides not clean things, we have to remember that people who are silly, I've read many times that people, a lot of the experts are so far from being experts. They're so far. They're called experts because a TV show needs a movie, a news program needs an anchor, needs other things. It could just be someone who has a good stage presence, someone who just read One Second More. The amount of, even when I listen to sometimes, the amount of chazar, they just keep saying the same thing again and again and again and again. Like, give me some new information. Give me some analysis. Tell me what's really going on. They don't know. They don't know what's really going on. And the basic information is so available. So what's going on? Who they're at? There are some truly great analysts. People who really are reading a lot and seeing a lot and thinking a lot and breaking things down a lot. But a lot of them are just they're just performers. So you're just getting that news cycle in your head all the time. That's not going to cleanse your thinking. Haba midas kulam, and all the midas trichas kol kach tikun vayishara. Our midas, boy, our kas, our gaiva, our nosibom chavera, our rachmanis, our patience. So much. Mi yashar mi yataknim. Who will straighten them? Who will fix them? Im lo nasim leva leim v'lo nedaktik b'davar. We don't spend a lot of time on that. Now this is really important. I want to speak here because for some of us, maybe the very fact that we talk about Abbas Hashem and Yisrael already just immediately feels far from us. But Rabbeim is also including in that, and we'll see it included again, the idea of Tikkun Midas. And Tikkun Midas is somewhere where maybe for some of us we'll say, Abbas Hashem and Yisrael, I'm going to keep learning Mesilas Yesharim, and I want to hear the picture, I want to see what he says. But Tikkun Midas is something we all have to be dedicated to, and we know in our lives, and it's more available to us. Right, because love and fear are like emotions. But if we're angry, if we're full of gaiva, if we're not patient, if we can't include other people in our lives, that's things we need to work on right now. We all feel that, right? Our marriages aren't going to work. We're not going to be who we want to be in our workplace. Certainly, if we're Torah teachers, are you teaching what's good for you? Or are you teaching what's good for the students? Are you thinking about the students? Are you thinking about yourself? Are you a selfish person? Are you a selfless person? Are you giving for the yeshiva? Are you giving for yourself? Are you giving for the community? Are you giving for your Rav? Right? We're all human, but where's our minds? That's Tikkun Midas. That's Tikkun. Are you setting yourself up for a big machlokes? What happens? How do all these crazy machlokas happen in chassidios and yeshivas? A lot of these people were the cream of the crop. Best guy in yeshiva, the best chassid in the chassidus. Suddenly he's making the machlokes. What happened? They didn't work on their midas when they were younger, when it wasn't a challenge. So we all have to work on our midas. So if the Mesilas Yesharim's message is a little far from some of us because it seems like so far out there, Abbas Hashem Yirsim Tvekas, whoa, we're going to stop. No, but Tikkun Midas is a big part of the book. I'll read that again. And thinking. Midas kulam tzrikas kol kach tikkun vayishar. Every midas needs so much work. Mi yashar mi yataknim. Who's going to fix them? And after 120, you just say, well, I learned a lot of shas, but I never worked on my midas. No. And we all know the feeling when we run into a Talmud Chacham was midas aren't going to be. Don't be so judgmental, right? Like the Yavitz talks about. Some Talmud Chacham, they have a tough life. They're up thinking, learning all the time. You'd also be a little rougher, and some of them don't have as much time. They're not polished speakers, and they don't have their ties just right, and they're many Avrechim like that. Don't see past that. Have a little bidan l'kav schus. Right? Don't just say, he has a dirty shirt. Okay, I try not to wear a dirty shirt. Right? I understand, and I'm a public figure, but let's give them some slack. But Tikkun Midas, you see anger in someone it really goes a far way. To be marchik people from Yiddishkeit. So a person who wants to be marchik, you have a Rav gets up and speaks, and he wants to makar people to Yiddishkeit, and they see some anger in him. He's marchik them. You're gonna fix your midah. They see a haughtiness. You keep them farther away from Torah. You're working so hard to bring people close to Torah, but then you get angry again. Not in a way a person is down like people want depression, things like that. But we all know sometimes you run into someone who's inexcusable. I was at a Shabbos one time with a very chashuv Talmud Chacham, big Talmud Chacham. He spoke down at his wife. Adiyom as I remember it. I know my wife remembers. She doesn't ever quotes it, but I know my wife refers to it since I don't know what she. Terrible. He spoke. You couldn't control yourself. Said, "Not nice to your wife at a Shabbos." We all remember it. 20 years later, you remember it. Huh? Not that it wasn't me. I just happened to be there. So you got to work on your midas. I'm talking to myself, right? Now, if we would start spending that davar truthfully and realizing we would find all these things in the true way, and we would find themselves. And then, if the wise people were involved in this, then what would happen? So the problem right now, in summary, is that right now, said Rabbeinu, the really wise people who could know Tikkun Midas, Avos Hashem, Yiras Hashem, aren't involved in it. It's left to those who are less wise. They don't know. And if we could fix the situation, then what would happen? Then the wise people would become chachamim in these areas. They would be kohen of these areas. They would acquire these areas, and then they could teach the other people, and everybody would be uplifted and fixed up, and the world would look very, very different.